27-13. That was the Chicago Bulls' record in the 2021-22 season before Lonzo Ball went down with a season-ending injury. Not only did they have the best record in the East, but they were also one of the NBA's best defensive teams. Since Lonzo's injury, the Bulls have been stuck in no man's land for a while. Their ambitions of competing and contending have yet to be realized because they're missing a huge piece of their team, a piece that's been overlooked and underappreciated because he missed over 2 entire seasons. Lonzo's knee injury was more serious than we ever imagined. Then there's his little brother, LaMelo, who suffered a fractured ankle from a seemingly normal play. It was a non-contact injury, and nobody even touched him. Yet this injury to his right ankle forced him to miss the majority of 2 seasons. Like his brother, his team is also patiently waiting for his return, because without LaMelo, the Hornets are nothing. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today let's take a look at how Lonzo and LaMelo Ball became the most unfortunate brothers in the history of the NBA. When Lonzo Ball first suffered his knee injury, a huge storyline that popped up was his shoes. In particular, the Big Baller brand, a company founded by his father. If you recall, Lonzo began his NBA career playing under his father's shoe brand. Remember that whole controversy when he released his first signature sneaker, which cost a ridiculous $495? It wasn't just the price tag that was controversial, it was the quality of those sneakers.
It really was. No one knows the real story about them shoes, though. Them ZO2s I was playing in, they was not ready.
They were?
Really? I had to switch them every quarter because they would just rip. I'm like if you literally have my shoes from those games, like they're just like exploded, bro.
In an interview, Lonzo said he had to change his shoes every quarter because they were falling apart. Fast forward a bit, and by 2020, Lonzo ditched the Big Baller brand sneakers completely, but the damage has been done. In 2023, a report claimed the Chicago Bulls believe Lonzo Ball will never step foot on the NBA court again. This was shortly after his 3rd knee surgery, and seeing as how he missed the 2023-24 season, his future is looking bleak. Even if he comes back, will he ever be the same player as before? This whole shoe story was just baffling. To make it worse, LeVar even came out and said the reason Lonzo's knees blew up was because he switched to Kobe's shoes. Keep in mind, Kobe's sneakers are used across the NBA by so many other players. But LeVar blamed Lonzo's injuries on Kobe's shoes, which, it sounds ridiculous, because it is. Perhaps the shoes aren't the problem. Coming into the NBA, Lonzo was the butt of so many jokes. It wasn't only because his father was hyping him up like crazy, comparing him to the likes of Magic Johnson, claiming he's better than Steph Curry before he even got drafted. But his jump shot was completely broken. In his first 2 years in the NBA, his three-point shot was very poor, not impressive at all for a guy who was supposed to be the next great shooter. However, over time, things started to change. After leaving LA, Lonzo also left the spotlight, and he had ample time to recuperate and work on his skills without the distractions. In New Orleans, he developed a new shooting stroke, and it looked substantially better than his old one. It actually looked like he was going up straight, instead of swinging the ball from one side to the other, like he used to do. The results speak for themselves. Lonzo improved his three-point shot dramatically, attempting over 7 threes a game on a 38% clip. His increase in confidence goes a long way. As a 6'6" point guard, he started utilizing his length to his advantage, now recognized as one of the NBA's best perimeter defenders. In fact, in the 2020-21 season, Lonzo ranked 1st in the entire league in toughest defensive assignments. What does this mean exactly? Well, according to Basketball Index, he defends the most difficult matchups, and more often than not, he comes out on top. New Orleans had hope that he and Zion Williamson could launch the Pelicans into a new era. Despite the Pelicans losing a lot, this duo was quite formidable and complemented each other so well. For example, according to PBP stats, in over 1,000 minutes of playing together, the Pelicans had an offensive rating of 118.5. For reference, in that season, that would be the #1 ranked offense, even ahead of the Brooklyn Nets. It just shows how effective the two of them were. Unfortunately, their time together was short-lived, as Lonzo did not want to stay there, and the Pelicans did not want to commit over $20 million a year to him, so it was a mutual parting. When Lonzo first arrived in Chicago, it was immediately a great fit. On a roster filled with many ball-dominant players, most of whom did not care much about defense either, Lonzo's skill set fit perfectly. He filled in all the holes this team had. He's a pass-first point guard. He's now a great shooter who can play off the ball and spot up. It helps a lot when your two main scorers are great slashers, so they can break down the defense and kick it out to him. And of course, with his new identity as a defensive stud, Lonzo became the catalyst for the Bulls' defense. Plus, he's so big, so he's willing to switch onto bigger guards and forwards. And he will hold his ground. Here's a nifty stat. The Bulls' defensive rating with both Lonzo and Caruso on the floor together was 104.8. When they were off the court, the Bulls' defense was a putrid 117.3. That's literally the difference between the best-ranked defense among all teams and the worst-ranked defense. Naturally, when both of them went down with injuries, the Bulls' defense fell off a cliff. Lonzo's injury was initially diagnosed as a meniscus tear, an injury that usually takes about 6 weeks to fully heal from and get back onto the court. That's why it's been perplexing. Like, why did he miss so much time? Since that tear, he's underwent multiple surgeries, including a cartilage transplant in his knee. Essentially, the doctors discovered there were way more problems with his knees than just that meniscus tear, and it's led to setback after setback. A lot of blame goes towards the Bulls front office, how they've been stuck as a play-in team or low-seeded playoff team for years. But a large part of that has to do with Lonzo's absence. His contract is worth $85 million over 4 seasons, yet he's already missed the majority of this deal. Injuries have devastated this franchise, going all the way back to the Derrick Rose era. The Bulls cannot catch a break, or they caught too many breaks. In terms of roster construction, if everyone was healthy, I feel like they would be a solid playoff team in the East. We saw a glimpse of how good they can be with a healthy Lonzo. Then you add on Zach LaVine's injuries too. It's depressing, because we'll never see this team at their full potential. On the other hand, LaMelo's path to the NBA did not flood the headlines like Lonzo's. In fact, he stayed out of the public eye, and instead of college, he played professionally in Australia. As a prospect, he wasn't thought of as highly as his brother. By the time the 2020 draft rolled around, LaMelo made history. By getting drafted at number 3, him and Lonzo became the first set of brothers to both be drafted in the top 3 of their class. Unlike Lonzo, however, LaMelo looked very promising right out the gates. He even made the All-Star team in his second year and led the Hornets to their first winning season in 6 years. Not only was he a substantially better scorer than Lonzo, but he had an actual jump shot. LaMelo's a high-volume three-point shooter, with court vision that rivals his brother too. LaMelo is what we thought Lonzo would be on the Lakers, the leader and point guard of a young, fast-paced run-and-gun offense. Showtime was back, but this time it was in Charlotte. On February 27th, 2023, this happened.
Something happened with LaMelo. He was, let's see, slow ball handler. Yeah, that's his own feet. Didn't step on anyone. Twisting himself into the ground. No contact. Hopefully nothing serious. We'll take a timeout. Back in a moment.
At a glance, you might think, what just happened? Did he trip and fall over? It didn't look like anything happened. Nobody touched him. Upon closer inspection, right here, it seems like his right ankle buckled. The report came out later that day. Apparently, on this play, he fractured his right ankle. It was alarming. While ankle injuries aren't as bad as a torn ACL or ruptured Achilles, breaking your ankle randomly without any contact? That's concerning. Throughout that entire season, LaMelo was dealing with ankle problems. His left ankle in particular got sprained 3 different times. While recovering, it's possible he was trying to overcompensate and put too much stress on his right ankle. There's a reason why, when you see players injure one knee, usually they end up injuring the other one down the road as well. LaMelo's fractured right ankle did not come out of nowhere. It was a build-up over the season until it reached the breaking point. After getting surgery, his season came to an abrupt end, while the Hornets fell down the standings. Now, an injury like this, he's expected to make a full recovery and come back better than ever. However, over a year went by, and he still hasn't. That right ankle is still bothering him, and with this statement by the Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo's season was over once again. In 2 seasons, he played just 36 and 22 games respectively. It was another lost season for this franchise, and the Hornets once again fell further and further down the standings. On the bright side, they have another chance at a high draft pick. That's something, right? LaMelo's absence was the main reason they were able to get Brandon Miller in the first place. But with another horrendous season, this is their chance to snatch another young prospect to build for the future. In the best case scenario, LaMelo returns to full strength and he comes back to lead the Hornets back to the playoffs. This is the best case scenario. After all, he did sign a colossal $260 million contract. The team has made a massive commitment to him. They expect him to become a superstar. Is it strange to you that 2 brothers both suffered lower body injuries that were completely non-contact, and yet they're struggling to recover from it? For Lonzo, it's his knees. He's had 3 different surgeries on the same knee, and he's also had ankle injuries too early in his career. So perhaps it could be a genetic thing? Or perhaps a bad training program. I mean, just looking at his form in this video, perhaps LeVar's methods of working out is not working. It finally looked like his career was going down the right path. Everything came together in Chicago. Everything he got clowned for early in his career, he shut those critics up and fixed all his weaknesses. It's sad to see how injuries have sapped him of his best years. For LaMelo, it was also a non-contact injury that caused his fractured ankle. Both his ankles have plagued his career, and it's scary to think he might fall down a similar path as Lonzo. What they do have in common is both are highly important to their team's success. Lonzo is exactly what the Bulls are missing, and LaMelo is literally their franchise player. Is it because their bodies simply can't handle the rigorous grind of the NBA? Is it because LeVar and his big baller brand shoes have permanently damaged them? As I mentioned, this is the first time in history 2 brothers have gotten drafted both in the top 3 of their respective class. Their talent from an early age was well documented. So to witness both of them go down this hole and possibly never reach their full potential, it's so sad. They are the most unfortunate brothers the NBA has ever seen. Anyway, that's all, folks. Let me know your thoughts on the whole Lonzo and LaMelo Ball situations. Where do you see their careers going from here? For Lonzo, there's a legit concern that he might not ever play again, and even when he does, he won't be the same. For LaMelo, he signed one of the biggest contracts in history, so now the expectations are through the roof. Can he live up to it? Or are they both destined for a career filled with injuries? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.